Hello, and welcome to the JAGGAER 20.1 Release Feature Demonstration for Supplier Management Plus. In the 20.1 release, customers will have the opportunity to take advantage of several useful enhancements, including improved assessment functionalities, improved scorecard functionalities, improved supplier development plan functionalities, a new supplier traffic light model, as well as other useful enhancements that we'll discuss briefly toward the end of this video. The first set of features we'll discuss include JAGGAER's redesign of the supplier assessment functionality and new permissions for assessment group members. A major enhancement to the improved supplier assessment utility is the complete redesign of the assessment status expiration. Currently, only the qualified standard status, which is a standard status for the qualification and category dimensions, automatically transitions to the next standard status of expired. The other two dimensions, segmentation and risk, do not have the standard qualified status that automatically transitions to expired. They must be set up manually to expire. When a system administrator sets up these expirations, buyer end users who are managing the assessments can easily bypass the expiration configurations that have been set up by the administrator, and this can cause problems. Therefore, many customers are asking for more automation for these processes. In addition to this problem, the system generates too many emails, which are sent to buyers or suppliers to communicate the approaching status expiration. Therefore, in the upcoming release, customers will have the ability to manage each status's expiration and decide whether or not the approaching expiration date and expiration date alerts should be emailed to recipients. They'll also be able to define what assessment status or landing status the assessment will transition to automatically. In addition, they'll be able to redefine the status configurations at the assessment group level, which will override administrator configurations. With these improvements, there will also be a reduction in the number of alert emails generated by the system from 18 emails to 4 emails, 2 emails for approaching expiration date and 2 emails for expiration date. There will also be a new assessments portlet available in the dashboard. In this demo, I'll show you how an admin can set up a status expiry and alerts for an assessment status. Then I'll show you how to override those settings by going into the assessment group and selecting different settings for the same assessment status. To set up an automatic expiration date and landing status for a status, log in as the administrator. Go into the administration menu and go to Assessment Statuses. This shows you all the predefined dimensions for which you can set up statuses. You can set up expirations for any statuses in any dimension. But in this demo, we're going to set up one for a qualification dimension status. We want to set an expiration date and alerts for the qualified status. As you can see here, we've already created a status called Expired Qualification. We will use this as the landing status, which is the subsequent predefined status for a status. In this case, it'll be the landing status for the qualified status. To set the new status after expiry and associated alerts, open the status and click the Edit button. Scroll to the bottom and activate the Status Expiry Date settings. Specify the default duration for the qualified status in days, as well as set the new status or the landing status. In this case, we'll enter a default duration of 1 year or 365 days. And we'll set the new status to Expired Qualification. This is known as the landing status. Notice, however, that the new status after expiry is not mandatory. Optionally, you can set up email alerts as well. One for the approaching expiry date and one for the expiry date. You can choose to send an email to all AG email recipients, to the supplier, or to both the supplier as well as AG email recipients. you must specify the days before end date for the approaching expiry date alert. Simply click Save to save all of the configurations. Back in the list, notice that there are two columns called Default Duration and New Status After Expiry. Here you'll see the landing status that you've defined for each of your statuses, as well as the default duration. In addition to defining a status expiration for each assessment status, you can configure a status expiration at the assessment group level as long as you have the user rights to do so. Doing this will override this administrator configuration. To set up a status expiration at the AG level, open Supplier Management, Assessment Groups, and Assessment Group Management. Select the assessment group for your buyer organization. In this case, I'm selecting the Qualification AG for the JAGGAER organization. When it opens, notice this new Status Expiry Redefinition subtab. Within it, you'll see all of the defined statuses for the qualification dimension. To configure expiry date settings for the qualified status at the AG level, click Edit, and notice that in the drop-down box to the left of the status, you have two options, Default and AG Defined. The default option retains the status expiry settings configured by the administrator in the Assessment Settings menu, but the AG Defined option allows you to override those configurations. Just as we did in the Assessment Status menu, we can specify a default duration for the qualified status in days, as well as set the new status or the landing status. We can also change the approaching expiry date alert, as well as the expiry date alert. Once you click Save, the AG-defined settings will override what the administrator has set up in the assessment statuses. This is how you configure status expiry dates and alerts at the assessment status level as well as the assessment group level. In the upcoming release, you'll also see several new assessment group member user rights. When a buyer organization's users are part of an assessment group, meaning they're a member of that assessment group, the user rights assigned to each user determine what they'll be able to manage or control in the assessments that are created by the AG. The current change status permission is very broad in that it allows the AG member to change both the assessment status as well as the dates. It does not allow customers to choose whether or not they'd like an AG member to change the status only, the dates only, or both the status as well as the dates. However, in the upcoming release, if an AG member has been assigned the Manage Status permission, which was formerly called Change Status, the AG member will be able to change the assessment status, but not an assessment start date and end date. In order to change an assessment start date and end date, the AG member will be required to have the new Manage Status Start/End Date user right. These revised user rights will be enabled by default in the upcoming release so as to help provide more flexibility when configuring AG member roles. Here you can see the current AG role permission called Change Status. In the upcoming release, the Manage Assessment Group Roles tab will look different in that you will no longer see the Change Status permission. Instead, you will see the new permissions Manage Status and Manage Status Start/End Date. Another AG role permission that you will see is the new Change IP Status permission, which is specifically for category assessments. Currently, AG members who have the permission to edit the settings of an assessment but do not have the Change Status permission can change the internal process status of an assessment. In the upcoming release, a new permission called Change IP Status will be added for category assessments only. The AG member will need to have the Change IP Status permission in order to change an assessment status, regardless of whether or not they have the Edit Settings permission. This additional permission will allow AG members to have more specific permissions, permitting or excluding them from performing certain tasks. The new Change IP Status permission will appear under the two other new permissions, the Manage Status and Manage Status Start/End Date. The next set of features we will discuss are related to improvements to the scorecard functionality. The first improvement to scorecards you will see is the ability to reopen the review phase without having to return to the running phase. Currently, as the scorecard owner, if I wanted to return directly to the review phase, I could not because there is no option to do that. I could only return to the running phase by clicking the Reopen Evaluation button and then click Close Scorecard. The problem with returning to the review phase in this manner is that when I click Reopen Evaluation, the system will send out emails to the evaluators who have already submitted scores, re-inviting them to evaluate the scorecard yet again. In other words, it does not allow me to bypass this step in order to get back to the review phase. However, in the upcoming release, the scorecard owner will have the option to reopen the review phase directly without bothering evaluators. In this very brief demo, I'll show you how to reopen a scorecard evaluation to either the evaluation phase, also known as the running phase, or to the review phase. Here is a scorecard that has been closed. To reopen it, simply click the More button and select Reopen Evaluation. Prior to the 20.1 release, you could only reopen the evaluation phase, but now you can choose to either reopen to the evaluation or to the review. I'm going to select Review. By reopening the review, the evaluators will not receive emails letting them know that the scorecard has been reopened. But the scorecard owner or reviewer will be able to revise his or her current scores. As you can see, it'll be very easy to reopen a scorecard evaluation to either the running phase or review phase in the upcoming release. The second improvement to scorecards is the ability to choose the supplier visibility level on a scorecard. Currently, customers have the ability to share scorecard results with suppliers when an evaluation is closed. They can either share just the total score or the scorecard results, but this is not full visibility. In the upcoming release, supplier scorecard visibility will be defined at the scorecard template level and scorecard level. A buyer user can set the visibility level for a supplier in two areas, either when creating the scorecard or in the settings area of the already created scorecard. A third improvement to scorecards that you will see is the ability to share all scorecard results with the supplier. Currently, it's possible to make a limited amount of scorecard evaluation results visible to suppliers. However, suppliers are not able to view the buyer's suggested scores. Some customers may want to be fully transparent with their suppliers and provide complete visibility. Therefore, in the upcoming release, customers will be able to choose whether or not they wish to modify their sites to allow for this complete transparency. Suppliers will be able to see everything that the customer's organization can see in the scorecard, including KPI evaluators' suggested scores, KPI evaluators' comments, and KPI evaluators' attachments. Please note that customers must contact their JAGGAER representative to enable this feature. Once supplier visibility is enabled in a customer's site, the customer will be able to create scorecards that the supplier can see when the supplier logs into the portal. The supplier can open the scorecard and view how it was scored. This is an example of what a supplier might be able to see when logged in. The next set of features we'll discuss are related to improvements to supplier development plans. The first enhancement to supplier development plans is the ability to associate a plan with a particular scorecard evaluation round. Currently, customers are able to associate a supplier development plan with the scorecard object itself, not a specific evaluation period within that scorecard. So in the upcoming release, customers will be able to associate a plan with a specific evaluation round in a scorecard. Associating a plan with the scorecard object itself will no longer be possible. As you can see here in the graphic, customers can currently create multiple supplier development plans for an overall scorecard. This particular scorecard has 2 evaluations and 3 plans. But those plans are associated with the scorecard object and not the actual individual evaluations. In the upcoming release, customers will be able to create a single plan or multiple plans for a specific evaluation round. For example, here we have 2 low scores in the evaluation round number 1. In the new release, customers will be able to create a specific plan to address the low scores in that specific scorecard evaluation. The plans will be associated with the same overall scorecard, but they'll be specific to the particular evaluation round and not the entire scorecard object. Another enhancement to supplier development plans is the option to enable a new action recommendation wizard. Today, buyer users creating supplier development plans must decide if they want to create a plan completely from scratch, from a predefined template, or from an existing plan. In some cases, the buyer user may not know how to design a new plan from scratch or using a predefined template, or an existing plan may not be set up for the type of plan that they need to create. Furthermore, if they're creating a plan from an object, such as a scorecard, assessment, or a contract, the process can become even more cumbersome. In an effort to streamline the supplier development plan creation process, the upcoming release will give customers the option to activate a new recommendation wizard, which can be configured to automatically propose recommended actions for supplier development plans. For example, let's say that you wanted to create a corrective action plan in response to a poor scorecard result. You could configure the wizard so that scorecard results in a particular range would trigger certain suggested actions. You could then use those actions to build a supplier development plan for that supplier's scorecard. You can activate the wizard in enterprise scorecard templates, assessment scorecard templates, as well as contract scorecard templates. Please note that while the wizard can assist in building supplier development plans, it is not designed to automatically create plans. Though Jagger will activate this wizard in a customer's site, customers will be responsible for configuring the thresholds and suggested action groups in each type of template. Please note that customers must contact their Jagger representative to enable this feature. In this demo, I'll show you how to activate the new action plan recommendation wizard in an enterprise scorecard template. Keep in mind, however, that in addition to an enterprise scorecard template, you can also activate the wizard in an assessment scorecard template as well as a contract scorecard template. The process will be similar. Before you activate the recommendation wizard in any type of scorecard template, there are a couple of important steps you must take. You must first determine what actions you want to take for various scorecard outcomes, and then you must configure those actions either within a plan template or in something called action groups. Action groups are sets of actions that the wizard uses to make suggestions if a scorecard result falls within an unacceptable range. Action groups and plan templates are similar in that they both consist of a grouping of predefined actions. However, unlike plan templates, action groups do not require you to manage other settings such as fields, which are required in a plan template. Action groups are set up in the Supplier Development submodule in Supplier Plans Action Groups. As you can see here, I've set up a couple of action groups. If I open one of these, I see a set of actions, corrective actions in this case. In a moment, when I go into my scorecard template, you'll see where I'll add one of these sets to that scorecard template's recommendation wizard. So let's go to my scorecard template. See this Recommendations tab? That is where you set up the recommendation wizard that will assist in suggesting actions such as corrective actions when a scorecard result falls within an unacceptable range. You can see here that you could add a plan template consisting of recommended actions, or you could simply add an action group, that group of corrective actions we just saw in the supplier development module. Let's add one of the action groups. Click Edit. And notice that it asks us to specify some conditions. Let's say that if the scorecard result is less than or equal to 70, the recommendation wizard will propose this set of actions. Then we simply click Save. So what this means is that once this scorecard template is activated, each scorecard that is created using this enterprise scorecard template will trigger this set of suggested actions if its score falls at or below 70. So as you can see, once you've identified and set up your action groups, activating the wizard within a scorecard template is very easy. Simply access the new Recommendation tab and add either a plan template or action group. Another major enhancement of note in the 20.1 release is the introduction of what will be known as Supplier Traffic Lighting. This new assessment model, called the STL model or the Supplier Traffic Light model, has been introduced to align better with customer needs and expectations. Currently, the platform supports only 4 assessment dimensions: qualitative, risk, category, and segmentation. And each of these dimensions comes with its own set of default standard statuses. This existing hard-coded supplier assessment model has proven to be limiting for various customers who need to develop and manage supplier assessments according to their own specific business needs. Therefore, in the upcoming release, JAGGAER is introducing a brand new redesigned model that will allow for the flexibility that many customers require. Customers will be able to define and configure their own dimensions as well as their own statuses. Instead of predefined statuses, what is referred to as a traffic light system will be implemented, where different symbols can be associated with different customer-defined statuses, such as OK, not OK, or partially OK. Of course, the customer will be able to fully customize these statuses. Though not all features associated with this new model will be immediately available, basic functionalities will be present in the upcoming release. Customers can expect the model to continue to evolve with each subsequent release. Please note that customers must contact JAGGAER to enable this feature. With this new feature, a new user right will be required, called View Supplier Traffic Lights Records. This user right will need to be turned on within user management. 2 options will be available: View Supplier Traffic Lights Records when the user is on the STL team, or View Supplier Traffic Lights Records for the entire buyer organization that the user is part of. In this demo, I'm going to show you how to set up a supplier traffic light dimension, set up custom statuses, and then associate those statuses with the dimension. You must possess the administrator credentials in order to configure these dimensions and statuses, as they are configured in the administration menu of a site. First, let's open the administration menu. Notice the light gray scroll bar to the right. Scroll down to the new Supplier Traffic Lights option. Select the Supplier Traffic Lights flyout and choose Traffic Light Dimensions. This is the first tab we'll discuss. This is where you could add or create any dimension that you need. You can see that I've already created 3 generically named dimensions, customer-defined dimensions 1, 2, and 3, as well as one called Code of Conduct. Remember that unlike before when you were restricted to only 4 dimensions, qualification, segmentation, category, and risk, The name of the dimension is now completely up to you, the customer. It could be anything. Let's create another dimension. Click Add. When the Create New Dimension page opens, you must give your dimension a name. In this case, we're going to call the dimension Financial Health. You can optionally enter a description as well as a unique code. You also have the option to make it visible to the supplier or not. We will choose Yes, and then save the new dimension. There is one more step in creating a dimension that you want to use. You need to activate it. Once we've activated it, we have successfully created the dimension. So what's next? Well, let's go back into Supplier Traffic Lights, and then click the Statuses tab to see what statuses we've already configured. We can see that we have 3 already, but we can set up as many as we need and name them whatever we wish, because there are no restrictions like there were before. So for our financial health dimension, let's say we not only want to use these statuses and their associated colors, we want to use one more as well. So let's add one more status. Click Add. We'll name this status NA or Not Applicable. We will give it a description, and we'll select a symbol for this. I'm going to choose gray and a circle. Once we're satisfied with these settings, we simply click Select and then Save. The last step is to activate the new status. So now we have 4 activated statuses to use. Let's go back into the dimension that we created earlier. We need to associate statuses with this dimension. Select the Associated Statuses subtab. We can see an empty Associated Statuses subtab. In order to use statuses with this dimension, we must add activated statuses to it. So click Add, and then click Add Statuses. Let's select all of the statuses. Notice that we have the option to display a specific name to the buyer and the supplier. Let's leave the default settings, however, and click Save. Now this dimension has 4 statuses associated with it, and all of them are selectable. Let's go back to the Supplier Traffic Lights area and select one more tab called Organization Setup. This is where we associate buyer organizations that are using this instance with the dimensions that we set up in the Traffic Light Dimensions tab. Currently, there are no buyer organizations using this functionality. In order for them to use this functionality, we have to add them here on this tab. So let's add our buyer organization, which is JAGGAER. Click Add Buyer Organizations and select JAGGAER. You can add all the other buyer organizations in the instance as well, but I'm choosing to add only JAGGAER in this example. Once we add our organization, notice that all of the dimensions are displayed beside the organization's name. Right now, all of them say Hidden. You can select each of these, and a drop-down box will appear, giving you the option to make this dimension writable or read-only. So this is how you can easily set up Supplier Traffic Light dimensions, statuses, and associate those statuses with the dimensions. They're very simple to configure, and they'll allow you greater flexibility in your supplier assessments. In addition to the enhancements already discussed, several other enhancements will also be available in the upcoming release. The first additional enhancement is a simplified assessment title for category assessments to help improve the usability and navigation. Instead of the current name of assessment designation, the assessment field name will be called Supplier Organization. This greatly clarifies the purpose of this field. The second additional enhancement is a new Save and Exit button in assessments. Currently, when a user is editing one or more assessments, they're able to click Save and go to the next form, or they can cancel. In the upcoming release, they'll be able to save and exit the form so as to return to it later if needed, or perhaps they only need to edit one of the assessment forms. This button will allow them to do that. This feature is also valid for the supplier side. The third additional enhancement is a new grade column in the scorecards tabs, as well as a new grade name area in the scorecard form, which will be visible if Show Grade Name is flagged in a scorecard template. This improvement will consolidate the management of grade name visibility on the buyer side and manage the grade name visibility on the supplier side. Another additional enhancement is a new History of Changes subtab in the details of a supplier development plan. This will help customers track plan changes. Currently, the Supplier 360 link is available in the Supplier console only when a list of suppliers is displayed. With the 20.1 release, the usability will be enhanced, and the Supplier 360 link will also be available when you access the supplier profile from the Supplier console. Please note that the Supplier 360 link will remain unchanged in the Supplier directory and in RFX. Currently, suppliers are not able to view their performance across various evaluations in the Scorecard Trend feature, and this option is only available to buyers. With the 20.1 release, the existing Show Trend feature will also be available for suppliers to provide them the overall view of their performance across evaluations. To learn more about the product release features as well as all the other JAGGAER 1 solutions, please visit the product release library to view additional training videos and to access the release notes. Now that you've learned about the new features available with the JAGGAER 20.1 release for Supplier Management Plus, start testing them for your organization. We hope this new functionality will empower procurement at your organization, and we welcome you to contact us with questions and feedback.